Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this EUDAT webinar on how to organize and retrieve and aggregate data using annotations with B2NOTE. My name is Annotate, and like our other host, Yann Grootveld, I'm involved in EUDAT training, and we will be moderating this webinar. This webinar will be recorded, as I've just said, and published on the EUDAT website next week. First, something about EUDAT. The EUDAT project offers common data services supporting research communities as well as individuals through a network of 35 European organizations. And these shared services and storage resources are distributed across 15 European nations. The EUDAT services address the full life cycle of research data, from deposit to access, including informal data sharing, long-term archiving, and access for computation. We have one presenter today, which is Dr. Yann Le Franc from Paris, and he holds a PhD in neuroscience with more than 10 years experience in academic research. He's an expert in semantic web and linked data technologies applied to research data management solutions. He's involved in development of semantic web services within the EUDAT CDI, the designer of Annotation service, and the co-chairman of the EUDAT Semantic Working Group. So we are very happy that he's here with us today. Before I hand over to Yann, I have a few housekeeping messages. You are all muted for the moment. So we can't hear you if you are saying something to your microphone, but you can use the chat box for your questions and comments. And please start your question with the word question so that we know that you would really like to address it. You would really like us to address it. At the end of several parts of the webinar, there will be room for questions. So everything you type into the chat as a question, we will try to answer that during the webinar. Yes, I think that's it. And I think it would be good if we start with the poll question that is now on the screen, which is about your experience with annotating your research data. I think we can see the results, but if you didn't answer it, please answer it. So there's quite a few people who have no experience with annotating your research data, and 3 people have. Yann, would you?
Yes, thank you, Hélène, for this introduction. So, as you said, I'm Yann Le Franc. I'm a doctor in neuroscience. And I used to work in labs doing neurophysiology and computational neuroscience. I'm involved in the EUDAT project. And I actually created a startup company. We'll start with a short introduction. That's called eScience Data Factory. Based on my experience, bad and good, but data management of scientific data, working with my own data and data from others. The main objective of the company is to help scientists to generate fair data, which is kind of buzzword these days, but essentially means helping them with their data management problem, how to solve these issues. And for this, we're providing some consulting services, especially looking at data management planning and auditing their infrastructure. But we do also custom software development, creating user-friendly data management tools for scientists, and integrating the tools of the semantic web and the linked data in this particular software. We're also doing knowledge modeling, basically creating ontologies for a researcher. We're doing research and innovation as partner of the EUDAT project, and we recently got validated as a private research organization by the French Ministry of Research. And we're also helping scientists for their data curation and data publication problem. So if you're interested at some point to work with us there, you can just drop us an email at contact.esciencedatafactory.com. Now, let's talk about what we're doing in the context of EUDAT, which is one of our core activity right now. We have been working on trying to develop an annotation service, and I will be talking about it for the whole hour now. I will start with a short introduction about the annotation that could be followed by some questions. It will be easier to actually, if I talk the whole all through the slides, and then at some point we stop and we have questions. Then I will switch to a demo session where I'll show you the different functionalities of the service, and then there could be also followed by discussions. And then we can have actually a real open discussion on different topics, and there would be a poll appearing so that you can select the topic you want to discuss within a list of topics to describe in more detail the service. And then finally, we'll do some concluding remark, and then we'll have some, and then Marianne will have some things to say to conclude this webinar. So let's start with the short annotation introduction. What do we mean by annotations? So if you look at the definition, an annotation is just a note you add to a text, a book, a drawing, an image, whatever. We used to do that manually, take a pen and paper and annotate our scientific papers or books that we are reading and so on. And the idea is that we could use this kind of process to actually annotate digital content as well. And in this context, we are saying that basically it is an annotation is an assertion we want to make about a digital resource that could be a text file, an image, a recording, or a movie. Why would it be helpful for you to do this? Well, first of all, that's one way of enriching digital content that's already published on data repositories that are currently frozen because they are published, so metadata is not going to change and the data is not going to change. But you want to use the data, and some of the concepts that are related to the data are not part of the metadata. So it's one way of actually annotating, adding more information to digital content that's already published. Once you have done the annotation, and then you can use this annotation to structure your data differently using this annotation, because you add up keywords, your own keywords on top of this data structure, and then you can use these keywords to retrieve them and to organize them. It's also one way of supporting data curation either before or after the publication of the data. Just to make a comment about, well, data there's some metadata missing and this kind of things. And finally, we were thinking about the usage, and one of the main usage of this annotation is that once you started to spend the time to annotate manually the data, it's because you have a good reason. You would like to reuse that data, and so you should be able to create an aggregated data set from multi-scale or multi-domain datasets using these annotations. So about B2NOTE. So B2NOTE is the annotation service that we created to actually offer you this possibility of enriching the content of the data hosted on the EUDAT CDI at first. It is right now a pilot version, which means that there's still bugs, there's still issues. The annotation, the persistence of the annotation is not yet guaranteed, but we're working on the production version of this service. And one of the reasons of this webinar is actually getting feedback from you about our service, bug reports, if any, and comments on new functionality or improvement of the service. Currently, the service allows you to do three main types of annotation on top of files within the EUDAT CDI. Semantic annotation, or semantic tagging of the data, using domain-specific ontologies. Free text keyword, in case you do not find any of the concepts in domain-specific ontologies, or you would like to use your own keywords simply. And comments, which would be then some longer text that you would like to associate to the file. Let's say this file contains an artifact, for instance. The annotations are actually created based on a standard W3C model, which is the W3C Web Annotation Data Model, which means that it's well described and it's interoperable. We're using JSON LD for JSON link data, for those of you who know, and RDF format to actually handle the data and allow you to export it. We'll talk about this in a few moments. And currently, the service has been designed to be integrated with the services offered by EUDAT. And it's currently integrated for the test version with B2SHARE, which is the data repository for EUDAT. So just a few words about the web annotation data model. It's a very powerful and simple data model, which is based on the graph representation. And here is a small caption coming from the W3C document. So if you want to have more details, I encourage you to go to the W3C website, where basically an annotation is an aggregation of two main classes: a target, which basically refers to the file or the entity you're currently annotating, and the body, which actually contains the annotation itself. And this model is very simple and allowed to do some inference and describe the implicit relation, saying that the body is related to the target. In the annotation standards, the main serialization that is proposed is actually JSON LD. JSON LD is also another JSON W3C standard. It's a variation of JSON, and basically what it is, it's a JSON-based representation of RDF graph. Now, a bit more details on the pilot service, and then we'll go to the demo. Currently, the B2NOTE pilot service is a crowdsourcing annotator. So that means that all the annotations you're going to make on B2SHARE training instance are going to be public and seen by everyone and used by everyone for search. Now, we are focused on the fact that this service is here to help you do some more research. We use data, aggregate data for a research project. So in the upcoming releases, we are going to provide you with a workspace for having private annotation, and use this private annotation to organize the data and reuse the data the way you want. The main goal when we designed this service was to make it easy to use. So we have been trying to provide an intuitive user interface, keeping things very simple. And we're also providing a functionality, which is the auto-completion for the semantic tag, because as scientists or even as an ontologist, you will not be able to know all the concepts that exist in all the ontologies around the web. So we need to give you a hand when you type your text to actually retrieve these concepts and the information related to these concepts. It's also helps you to easily create new datasets selected based on your annotation, and you can export that. And it's easily integratable with different services. So, of course, EUDAT services, but also we had in mind to offer these services to community web user interface or community portals. So the approach that we have taken for that is to use a widget iframe approach, where you can actually integrate in any web interface the B2NOTE service. Finally, we try to make it easy for everyone to deploy this. So we're using very common technology based on Python. We use MongoDB as a backend to store the annotation, and Django CMS to generate the web user interface. Now, let's switch to the demo. Enough talking. So basically, for the demo, I'm going to show you how to create an annotation. view and access your annotation from the interface, edit your annotation, searching for annotated datasets, export an aggregated dataset based on your annotations, and export annotations. Now, before starting, if there is any question, please just put it in this on the chat box. So I do see one question from Andrew. Is there a limit on the number of annotations the backend DB can store? That's a very good question. We are, as we are moving now to try to make it a production-ready service, we are testing this. There shouldn't be any limit so far, because MongoDB is actually quite flexible and it allows you to shard the load of the database storage on multiple machines. So virtually, you can annotate as much as you want. I hope I answered your question. Any other question?
I don't think so. I think you can go ahead with the demo.
Great. So it means that was clear. Okay,
yeah,
so let's switch to... Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that I would like to say to all the participants that there is a little button with 4 arrows at the top of the window with which you can enlarge the demo window. So for all the participants, this is a possibility to enlarge your window. But now, Jan, go ahead.
Yes, so for the demo, you can go to the service. I hope that you already went there using the information in the email and you started to log in. I'm now going to start sharing my screen. So if you go on the link https b2note.bsc.es, you will arrive on the landing page of the service, which was our initial testing environment, where we somehow emulate the B2SHARE repository by providing a list of files with their title and the handle or the PID of the file. Now, on this page, you can see that you can create an annotation. If you click on the button, Create Annotation, there should be a widget that appears on the right side of the screen, which will ask you for logging in. We're not going to work on that landing page. You can actually benchmark it and test it. Just one thing, we had a small issue with registration and login. If you cannot register or login and you get an error message, it means that you need to activate the cookies on your browser. For some reason, we are trying to fix that, but right now, if you don't accept cookies, you may have not been logged in. I'm going to switch now directly to the B2SHARE integration demo. So if you click on the orange button on the landing page, then you have some text that explains you some issues we have had with the initial version integration with the B2SHARE service. One of them is the widget may not appear on the web page because of the resolution of your browser. And these you can change by using either Control- or Command- to actually change the resolution. And I'm going to increase the resolution of my browser now so we can see better. So we are now on the training instance of B2SHARE. So the idea is that now it's still a service, we are testing the service, so we want to allow you to have a sandbox to create annotations and play around, where you can actually create your own records with your own data and then annotate it. So apparently someone called Demo User 1 had a lot of fun with that recently and created a lot of records. So what we can do is pick one of these records. And you will see now the landing page of this particular record. Now, to access the annotation button, you need to select one of the files of this record, click on the arrow, and then you will see the button Annotate in B2NOTE appearing. If you click there, then you will see the widget on the right side appearing. So we still need to work on details on the integration. The window is not, you cannot move the window around and so on. That's going to be fixed in later versions. Now, if you haven't registered, there is a link below the usual login fields, new user, register. We are asking you a little bit of information. And this is to create what we call an annotator profile, because right now every annotation is going to be public. So if you want to do that on not sharing your identity, you can create an annotator pseudonym. So all the fields are required. Please fill them in. We are asking, for instance, annotator experience. It's just for us to know well, who's using it and how experienced are the people. And do not forget to enter the CAPTCHA to avoid robots to actually create 10,000 accounts at the same time. Now, I'm going to log in with my account. So once you're logged in, you will arrive on the main interface of the service, where you can actually create your annotations here, visualize all your annotations, and visualize annotation about this file that you're currently annotating. So right now, do not forget that you are annotating pastinalinda.json file. Now, a quick overview of the top menu. So this, you will find your account information. Right now, you cannot tune it or change it. We're going to actually try to include more functionality for the users there. The magnifying glass icon is there for searching through annotations, and I'm going to talk about it rather soon. This is for exporting your annotation. This is for logging out. And one important feature is the help page. In order to help you to know what you can do on one particular page in the interface, we are providing you some documentation on that particular page. So if you click on the question mark, you don't know what it's supposed to do, then you have a full description of the functionality of the page that will help you to actually sort of your question or answer the questions. Once you are on the help page, either you scroll up to the top or you use the link to the top, and then you can get back to the previous page using the arrow, or go back to the main page using the house icon. Yeah. So now, as I presented earlier in the introduction, the interface allows you to create 3 types of annotation: semantic tags, free text keywords, and comments. Okay, so let's start with creating some semantic tag on that file. I'm going to say, I don't know, it's a biological experiment, so I'm a neuroscientist, so it's some measurement about the brain. Now, when I'm typing, and you will have suggestions coming from auto-completion suggestions coming from an index that we created that contains currently the terms coming from the Bioportal ontology repository, which is the main portal for finding biomedical ontologies. So here I have a list now of terms, suggestions that are coming from many different ontologies. Now you can pick one. Let's take EFO, for instance. You select it, and then you can just create the annotation. Okay, now you just a validation screen, click there, and you're back on creating another annotation again. We understand that for the user it can be very cumbersome to have several times the same keyword coming from different annotation. That's an issue coming from the ontology design. So we are going to try to simplify this for the user in the next version by aggregating these different terms coming from different ontologies into one term and a badge that says the number of ontologies in which it appears with different URIs. Now we can create a free text keyword. Okay, I'm going to type a nice text. Yeah, so this can be well, you can have multiple words, keywords. At some point, if your keyword is longer than 160 characters, then it's going to propose you to have it as a comment or to keep on going with your free text keyword. So it's very easy, just create, just another validation. Now, let's say I want to type in brain measurements. Okay, so as a free text keyword, sorry, brain measurements. And I click create. Then, when you create the keywords, it will automatically detect whether or not it's matching a semantic term that already exists in an ontology. And it will propose you to actually create a semantic tag with that keyword, if you want, or to leave it as a keyword, if you prefer. So let's say we're going to do this as a semantic tag, and it's going to be there. And now it's proposing me to autocomplete, so I create it. Well, I already created that annotation. So in order to avoid duplicates of annotations on every file, we are actually warning you that we're not creating the annotation, we are letting you know that actually it already exists, so there's no need for that annotation. Now we can have a comment, a nice piece of data, and then you can create a comment on that file. Okay. So that was for creating annotation. Is there any urgent questions about the service we have, or this part?
Yeah, there is one participant typing something.
Yeah.
We have half an hour left. Just.
Okay, so yes, I'm going to that. Yes, you can search the annotation that you have made. So I'm going to actually show you where you can find your annotation. So you see there is the link, all my annotation. So you click on there, and we are showing you all the annotation you've made for the different types of annotation, either semantic tag, free text keyword, or comment. So if you click on this, you will arrive on the page that show you a table with your semantic tags, show you the number of files you've been, number of files that have been annotated with this particular semantic tag, and it will offer you to actually edit or delete this annotation for the current file you are annotating, not all the files. For the semantic tag, if you need to have information, you can see that it appears already when you just put your mouse on top. So you can see that it's coming from EFO, and you can see the ID of this. And if you want to have more info, then you click on the brain measurement, and it will give you the exact name of the ontology, the acronym, and the URI to go to the ontology. And at the bottom, the list of files that you have annotated with that particular semantic keyword. Now, just click on the arrow, you're back. Same thing, you can check your free text keyword. For instance, there are 2 files that I annotated with a nice test. So if I click on there, then I can retrieve my 2 files here. Okay? So these are your own annotation. So there is a question, can I sort the list of annotation? Not yet. That's actually a good question. Not yet. So it's going to be some of the improvements that we're going to make on the user interface. Now, these are your own annotation that applies to all the files, including the one you are annotating. You can also, because it's a crowdsourcing service, annotate, look at all the annotations that have been made about this file. And this particular record is quite unfortunate because nobody took care of it and nobody made any annotation except us. So when you look at the table, you see in blue badge that would be annotation made by others, and in orange that will still be yours. Okay? So this is just to actually, it's a initial interface for actually working with your annotation, looking at what you've made already on that file or on different files, and help you track down the work you've done as annotator. It's not yet perfect. We try to do it, provide these minimal functions because we have not much space in the widget. We're going to work on a more extended interface in the later versions. Now, we've seen the creation, we've seen the view. For the edit, that's fairly easy. You go to your annotations, then click on the pen icon, then you can change, and you want to say that this file is not about this, it's about a term mixer. Yep, the term appear, I select it here, I save it. Okay. All right. I see that there is another question from Carlos, how a new ontology could be added to be used to annotate. I'm going to talk about that after the demo. That's one of the key topics I'm planning to talk about after the demo. Now, let's do some search. Because, well, you've spent a lot of time doing the annotation, so you want to use it for a purpose, which is actually retrieving and organizing some of the data the way you want. So you have a search interface that will allow you to retrieve the files that you have annotated or others have annotated using either semantic tags, keywords, or comments. So you can actually do search that includes a mixture of the three. The only constraint is on the comments. As we are not indexing the content of the comment, when you select the comment field, it will only provide you the files that have a comment as an annotation and not look into the content of the comment. Okay. Now let's search with a semantic tag and say I want a term mixer. So you still have the autocomplete function, and then you can select this. Some of the ontologies include alternate label, which means basically synonyms. So you can include the synonyms in the matches. And then we want to actually add some additional constraint. So you can just, by clicking on the plus button, add another field for search. You can select the type of logical operator you want to use, and you can yet again select the type of annotation. So let's try a free text keyword, and I want to search all the files that I have annotated with Thermomixer and a nice test. Okay, now if you want to do the search, you just click on the magnifying glass icon, and then you will get the results of your search. At the top, you will see the initial queries, just to remind you. And then you will see the exact match, which is the exact mapping of the term. And if there exist any synonyms that are described on the semantic tag, it will also retrieve you the files that have been annotated with the synonym as related match. So here, there's no synonym, there's no there's only 3 files that I can retrieve. Okay? Now, as I said, you do this kind of query to retrieve files and organize them. So we're offering you the possibility now to export the results, to use them for a new analysis. So if you click on export the results, then you will end up on the same page, but this time you can select the files. So let's say I don't want this one, that's a legacy file. And by selecting the files, then once you've selected the files, then you can go to the JSON export. Sorry, I have a problem with my mouse. All right. And so basically, if you click on Generate JSON Export, then you will be arriving on the page that shows you the JSON. Right now, yes. Then you arrive on this page where basically it generates and shows you the JSON LD file that you're going to export. That contains, of course, the two datasets that you, or the two data elements that you did actually select with the URL that allow you to directly download that file, and also with the annotation related to that file. We recently added the features, if you don't want to work with JSON LD and you have already some script that work with RDF, that allow you to download as RDF. So there is a question, why not allow also a simple CSV type list? That's actually a good suggestion. Well, it's just because the data model is actually serialized as JSON LD, so we're just spitting it out the way it is. So if there is any use case for getting a CSV type list, we will offer that, of course. And there's no problem for doing that. It's just that you somehow, I think, with a CSV table, you lose the power of the format. But that's fine. Yes, you're right. Not all researchers know about what to do with JSON and XML. You're definitely right. That's actually a good suggestion. It's noted. Now, this is the export of your data. We've seen the search and how to export an aggregate data set. Now I'm going quickly on how to export your annotation. If you want to use it locally, let's say for instance to get your own database that you want to export this and upload it in your database, you want to use your own Sparkle endpoint or triple store to actually query this annotation, you can do that. Just click on the arrow export and you can select which annotation you want to export. Either all your annotation, of course, with the information about the file, or all the annotation about one particular file. So I think I'm done with the basic demo. Now I think we can switch to the main presentation. Yes. Thanks, Joachim. So apparently there is a JSON converter that allows you to convert JSON to CSV. Okay, so any particular question at this point? Maybe I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Yeah.
Yes, true. So there is a discussion ongoing about generating CSV type lists. That's actually a very good point. It's true that scientists may not be necessarily familiar with JSON or XML. So right now it's mostly for people who actually know how to write, for instance, a Python script to actually do some analysis on their data. That shouldn't be a problem to actually offer that because, as Joachim said, there are tools for doing that very easily. So we can actually definitively provide it if it's necessary. But that's a good point. That's very interesting. Now, you've seen, so it's a very simple service, a simple interface. We try to keep it very, very minimalistic and intuitive. Now, we know it's not perfect. We know there's still bugs, there's still issues. So we need your feedback. So in order for you to provide us with your feedback, there are two ways right now. On the interface, when you arrive on the annotation interface, at the bottom there is a at the bottom of the page there is a button that let us know what you think. And there, if you click on it, I didn't show it. If you click on it, you will arrive on the form where you can either drop an evaluation of the interface, whether or not you like it, on if it's useful, if it's actually efficient, and so on. And you also have a form to request for additional feature if something comes to your mind. Like, for instance, it would be nice to export a CSV table. That's a good way for us to actually get some of the requirements, additional requirements. And there is a form also to drop in a bug report, just in case there are issues. Okay, so I see that there is another question. Do you have plans to streamline mass annotation for large datasets deposits on to B2SHARE? So you're meaning automated annotation, right? Yes. So right now, well, it's in the plan. It's in the plan, but I cannot guarantee when it's going to be done. It would also depend on the type of data set. So one of the things that we are currently working on is trying to annotate not only the file itself, but the content of the file. So that's one thing, and so that will be linked to semi-automated annotation of content. And one of the functionality we've been thinking of is also allowing to do a bulk, well, some of automated annotation, or when you do a bulk upload of large datasets. Sorry. There is another question. Is there a way to allow users to record their discipline when annotated so that end user can find, filter annotation from peers in their own fields? That's actually a very good question. So that's part of the functionalities related to the user, which is also related to how to use your own ontology or your own domain ontology and not get flooded with suggestions that are not necessarily related to your own fields. So that's planned. That's going to be, well, that's going to be hopefully in the next release. I cannot tell you when. But yes, that's a very good question. What about support for annotating objects in the other B2 storage services, B2Drop and B2Save? So that's work in progress. As I said, before going any further, we would like to have feedbacks first. See whether or not it works like it for people, and there will be users. What kind of improvement we should do, and some of the suggestions you've made are actually very helpful. If you have others, when you just try the service, please do not hesitate to put it as in the request for additional feature. We are working with B2Find to actually also annotate metadata from external repository, and integration with other B2 services are going to be done at some point, but first we need to focus on finishing the initial version of the service. There is another question about from Gerard. Thank you for the clear explanation. Who are using B2NOTE currently? Not that many people, me, for testing. We're hoping that there will be more users from communities, and especially when we're going to be associated with the production B2SHARE repository. So we need still some time to work on some of this issue. And the other part of the question was, who will benefit most? I believe that scientists will be one of the first people who will benefit for aggregating datasets. Because at some point when the repository is going to be loaded with a lot of datasets, you may want to reuse datasets that are related to your fields that have been generated by colleagues and maybe reuse the content of data. Actually, I'm going to answer your question, the Jean-Marc question, in the same time. Is it just for the life science? No, it's not just for life science. The idea is that, well, it should be also useful for scientists who have multidisciplinary questions, because that's one way actually to annotate multidisciplinary datasets that are separated in the repository and to merge them together. There is another question. Do you have finance using? I'm not sure I'm understanding the question, Jean-Marc.
Jan, I think that for the additional topics to discuss, we might have only room for one part of it. Do you still want to go on with that, or do you want to leave the floor for questions?
No, there are interesting questions, so I'm going to answer maybe two questions. For instance, Jean-Marc is asking whether or not we have the finance sector using B2NOTE. Not yet. Currently, there's no limitation for the finance sector to use it because it's a very generic service. For security reasons, it can actually be deployed locally. We are working on a system that allows to integrate new ontologies, so that if you have finance ontologies, for instance, you should be able to use them. But right now, it's been designed basically for researcher in the context of the research infrastructure. But if you think about other usage and you want to have some support for deploying it and tuning it for finance, for instance, you can still contact me. And is there another question? No. Okay, so I think one of the questions that I said I would address, so there were several. There is the service architecture, the annotation data model. I think the burning questions are how can I use my own ontology for annotating file? And basically I'm going to switch directly to that. Well, you get actually a glimpse of the architecture. So the B2NOTE core service is very simple, as I said. It's just Django, Mongo, the driver that allow you to use the MongoDB, and I would say support to generate an API, a RESTful API, using Eve in Python. That's based on Flask. Now, for the autocomplete function, this is something else. The user interface of B2NOTE is actually querying a Solar index that we are creating from the harvesting of ontology repositories. Right now, to make it simple, we started with the biomedical domain because that's one of the domain, that's the domain I come from, so it's easy for me. So I went straight to Bioportal, that's where there are more than 535 ontologies, something like 8 or 10 millions of concepts there. And we started to harvest that repository. We currently have in our index 434 ontologies, which means more than 5 million concepts. For doing this, we had to curate this data set to make sure that it's correct and so on. And while working on that, we discovered that there is a huge problem of interoperability because harvesting the ontology repository is not going to be scalable because for each of these different repository, you have a different API. Some of them are using a RESTful API, some of them are using a Sparkle endpoint, and they do not have the same data model. So there is a huge problem of interoperability, which means that for each of the repository, we have to write a dedicated script by hand. That's not going to work. And there is also a huge problem of discoverability. So I know Bioportal because I'm in the biomedical domain, or I'm working in this context. Now, my activities are to provide this service for a multidisciplinary researcher. So I have to do that for humanities, earth science, what else? Well, there is linguistics, so that's part of humanities. The main problem is I do not know where are the resources. So there is also a large problem of discoverability. I know that there are many vocabulary services that exist, but I don't know where to get access to them. And there's no easy way for me to do that. So this is work that we are currently doing. Well, it's work in progress we are currently doing in the context of one of the research work package in EUDAT. And we're trying to design what we call the ontology lookup service. That will help you to actually use and integrate your own ontology for annotation. This service will should provide access to the multidisciplinary ontological resources. So basically help for the discoverability. It should offer you the possibility to register and describe your own endpoint or API. If you have a vocabulary that you are publishing on, let's say, a triple store through a Sparkle endpoint, you should be able to go to the ontology lookup service and actually put some description and also describe the mapping that would be necessary to actually harvest the right information from your endpoints. Or you can use B2SHARE to publish your ontology, and that's not yet implemented. That's somehow what we have in mind. Hopefully it's going to be done before the end of the project. But you should be able then to drop your ontology in B2SHARE, and then we should harvest this information directly. Now, I mean, this problem of interoperability and discoverability is not just a problem for us. It's a problem for all the communities, and it's a problem for many, many different communities, in fact. So we are currently organizing a dedicated semantic working group workshop in Barcelona in April. Unfortunately, we're already full. We already have more than 40 participants to this meeting. And the goal is to discuss how we can improve the discoverability and the interoperability of multidisciplinary scientific semantic resources. So that's currently work in progress. We're trying to tackle the issue of how we can actually offer you the service to integrate your own ontologies. How to cope with the different formats of the ontology. Either it can be OL, it can be OBO, it can be RDF, or it can be SCOS. These require some different mappings. So this is a complex question that we're going to address there. And hopefully it's associated to the RDA Research Data Alliance meeting. So hopefully it will be continued somewhere in some of the interest group or discussed. And I'm really hoping that people involved will be interested in keeping on working on this. Now, I do see in the poll that actually I answered to 50% of the interest. The other 50% are about the API. I still have 5 minutes. Should I go on?
Just show the slide of the API and that you have. Yes. I think that would be good.
Yes, it's very basic. So we use the Python REST API framework Eve, which is based on Flask. Right now, you can just access annotation. You are not allowed to create annotation. We're going to improve that, of course. So right now, you can access all the annotation just by clicking on the link b2note.bsc.es/API/annotations. You can also use filters to access this specific annotation, or what's called projection to actually just fetch some specific elements about the annotations. We are currently working on the annotation service documentation. There will be regular user documentation. There will be also a developer documentation where we're going to describe exactly in more details how to access the API.
I think we need to move on now to your contact information and give Marjan a few minutes to say something about the summer school.
Yes.
Is that okay with you?
Yes, fine. I'm done. Well, unless there are very burning questions, I think it's good.
Yeah.
Now, if you have more questions, then you can still contact me on the email address I provide on the slide. Yeah. Oh, yes, there's something I would like to say. I still would like to thank the developers of the service that helped me to put this together. So Antoine, who's working with me, and Pablo, who has been collaborating with us, helping us to get the service up and running on the VM, and help us with some aspects of the development, like the API, for instance. And the contact information for B2NOTE, you can contact me directly at Yann Le Franc at esciencefactory.com. Or if you are interested in working with us, you can still send an email to contact@esciencefactory.com. Thanks for your attention and for your interest. Marianne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yann, for talking us through a very valuable service. And I think it will be only more valuable once it's properly integrated with the other EUDAT services. Thanks to all for your comments. And it's left to me to make a bit of promotion for what we're going to do later on this summer. In the first week of July, we will have a summer school when you want to get hands-on experience with the whole EUDAT service suite, plus some services from other research infrastructures. That is when you are an early career researcher working with data and or a data manager, and you want to further your career in the field of data management, data science, or digital preservation. So it's EUDAT and friends, you could say. When you look at the topics that we are covering together with those colleagues and friends from the other infrastructures, you see it's a full program, but it's on the lovely Isle of Crete. So that makes up for a lot of theory. And again, the summer school is not so much about theory, but about getting hands-on experience. There is a web form, of course, where you can apply for participation in the summer school, and all information about the program so far and the venue. Please take a look and spread the word. It's just opened and you have about a month to apply, and we're looking forward to see a lot of interested applications. Thank you once again, Yann. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you all for participating, asking so many questions, and also suggesting so many future purposes that B2NOTE can perform. Thank you all very much. You will receive a link by email to the recordings afterwards and to the slides, and stay tuned to EUDAT services. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for your participation and all the kind feedbacks on the service and the webinar. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and as I said, I'm looking forward to more interaction with you, and if you have questions, please drop an email.
Okay, thank you. I will stop the recording right now.